Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Duval Dive. I am your host, Travis D. Holmes with BigCatCountry.com and the Believe Podcast Network. And Kyle, the student of the game, is actually out on assignment today, but in his absence, we have a special guest of the show, former NFL player and former Jacksonville Jaguar, former NFL scout, and now analyst with the NFL Network. And you know him, obviously, in Duval, the sideline reporter and analyst with the Jaguars. Welcome to the Duval Dive, Bucky Brooks. Thank you for showing in the show.
Hey, man, appreciate you for having me. I'm glad we were able to get this together.
Oh yeah, man. But before we get into any ball talk, I gotta come clean. I know you mainly through the media landscape. I know you,
Mhm.
through the pro football, scouting part of your lifetime. But I was recently surprised to learn you were a wide receiver in college who transitioned to defensive back in the NFL. I didn't know that part. Uh,
Yeah, in fact, it's funny. The transition actually happened right before I got to Jacksonville. So I was drafted in 1994 for the Buffalo Bills playing wide receiver. I go to the Green Bay Packers after I'm let go in my second season in Buffalo. And when I got there at a workout, they had me work at a wide receiver. But then at the end of the workout, they had me do some stuff uh, at defensive back. And part of it was just like athleticism, just wanted to see it, whatever. And at the time, anyone who was 6 foot, close to 200 pounds, that was considered a big corner. And because I was fast and athletic, they were like, hey, let's just see it, whatever. And so when I got there, they're like, hey, like, it's cool that you're playing wide receiver, but we think you may have a chance to play corner. Would you be willing to do that? And all the things came along with like, hey, you may have a chance to extend your career. It's an opportunity, like da 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 da. And for me, I just wanted to play in the league. And so I learned how to play DB initially in Green Bay, but it wasn't until I got to Jacksonville that I fully had an opportunity to play defensive back and play defensive back in significant minutes in the game. And so for me, the transition that I hear people talk about with Travis Hunter and those things, I'm like, man, he's way ahead of the curve because this is what he's been doing his entire life. I didn't make the switch and transition to the pros. And so I absolutely believe for Travis that there was a path for him to be able to do it. And we're kind of seeing that play out.
Whew, that's crazy to me. That's awesome. Also, I played receiver in high school and transitioned to cornerback in college at UCF. So for me, I'm just like, oh man, that's just funny. I was shocked to just learn that this year.
Oh,
I
that's
was talking
funny.
to someone in the Jaguars in the press box, and they mentioned it, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I didn't guess it.
Yeah. No,
All
that's,
right.
that's how it went.
But I also learned you were a head football coach for the Grenada Hills Charter School, who recently put up an impressive 44 points in Friday's tough loss. And like, does that being on offense and defensive side in your past, does that make it easier or harder when you lose, like when you put up that many points?
I would say, look, it never gets easy to deal with losing, but I would say everything that I had an opportunity to do as a player that I
Mhm.
found to be very, very challenging has always paid off um, leaps and bounds later in life. So playing offense and defense in the pros helped me have a greater perspective on the game when it came to scouting and understand multiple positions and being able to see the game from different viewpoints. Playing both ways in the pros has helped me as a head coach learning the entire game. So it's always been beneficial, I would say, as it relates to coaching and coaching high school. Um, Now I just have a clear sense of what it should look like on offense and defense. And so it is certainly helpful. And Friday night, too bad it wasn't helpful enough for us to get a dub.
Hey, well, we always have next week. Now, this Friday, you guys have Kennedy High School, so good luck. Shout out. I hope you guys win every game, unless you happen to play a school from Florida called Rains High School. That's my guys. But outside of that, hey,
Oh,
good luck. Good
I know
luck.
Reigns. They went to the state title game last year, right? Lost to Northwestern. That
Yeah,
that is that
they
that's what we're
play
talking about?
They play Lake Mary High School this Friday, down
Okay.
near Orlando. So yeah, those guys are doing it well too. Also, but just getting into the Jaguars, what's going on around the Duval County. By now, I think the Brenton Strange hype train is kind of full steam
Mhm.
ahead with both the fantasy football community and the NFL community, sort of in lockstep with the
Mhm.
thought process that the Jaguars tight end is kind of going to be the next big thing on the scene. Now, Bucky, are you surprised by Sunday's performance versus the Panthers? But most importantly, how much he was involved early on with the offense?
I would say you're always surprised until someone does it in game. And even though he has shown flashes and the buzz had been on the practice field for 2 years that, hey, Brenton Strange is a guy that is going to be the next coming, it really wasn't until the Jaguars kind of created a path for him to get on the field that maybe those things were going to happen. If the Jaguars don't move on from Evan Ingram, we never have an opportunity to fully see Brenton Strange grow and give James Gladstone and Liam Coen and all those guys credit for having the foresight to be like, no, no, no. Even though we didn't draft him, we feel like this player can be something special. So we're going to move on from a Pro Bowler. Because remember, when they moved on from Evan Ingram, this is one of Trevor Lawrence's best guys in terms of who he depended on the years that Evan Ingram was there. So when they moved on from him, they were taking a bit of a gamble that Strange would be able to step up and replace that. And after 1 week, we can see it was a worthwhile gamble because Brenton Strange is what many people thought he could be.
I mean, he did it in the run game. He did it in the passing game. I was speaking to Mike Kay, who used to be a beat reporter for covering the Jaguars. Now he's a beat reporter covering the Carolina Panthers in the press box during the game. And I'm like, dude, every time Trevor's in trouble, every time he needs to get out of jail free card, he's going to Brenton Strange. Like Strange had 100% success rate for the analytics community on his 4 catches, and 3 of his 4 catches went for first down. So like it was very obvious that, hey, if Trevor needed a money play, if he needed a third down reception, hey, it was going to be Brenton Strange or later on Dyami Brown. That was kind of awesome to see, though.
Yeah, look, it was awesome to see. And what it did is it helped Trevor settle. So for quarterbacks, and even though Trevor's been paid and he's in his 5th season, he's still a young quarterback in my mind. Sometimes the easier throws are the ones that are right over the middle, particularly when it's a tight end. And when you put Brenton Strange there and you have the weapons who the Jaguars have on the perimeter in terms of Dyami Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, and even Parker Washington, the defense can't cover everybody. So now it's about, hey, let me just go through my progressions. I'm going to throw the ball to the open man. I'm not going to worry about the jersey number. I'm going to trust that whoever gets open first, I'm going to get it to him. Because Strange has shown to be reliable and dependable and even explosive in terms of with the ball in his hands, I think you'll see Liam Coen begin to create more things that are designed with him maybe as the primary and the progression. So it then opens up the field for others to also get involved and do some things. The more you do with your opportunities, the more opportunities come your way. Strange certainly has earned more opportunities given what he was able to do in week 1.
Well, no, that he has. And you touched on Trevor Lawrence, like exiting the Carolina matchup. What were your initial takeaways from his performance?
Look, I thought it was solid. And I said this on radio early in the week. I felt like it was the most confident and composed that I've seen Trevor in game. Not that it was his best performance, because like he missed some throws, some things that he wished he had back. But in terms of the way that it looked with the eyeball test, the way that he commanded the offense, the way that he interacted with his teammates, the way that he managed everything at the line of scrimmage, it was me feeling like Trevor was in complete command of the offense. And it really showed that he had a mastery of the scheme. And even though the numbers can certainly improve and can get better, and we will need those numbers to jump up as we play better competition, it was the confidence that he played with that leads me to believe that he is going to flourish in the system under Liam Coen.
Yeah, I mean, I think our thought processes on this one are pretty much in alignment. Like it wasn't an incredible game. It wasn't even the average game you would want from him, but it was the winning football that you needed from him, especially if you're counting just 3 of the 4 quarters. He ended the game with a 74.4 passing rating against Carolina. And in my opinion, it can't be underreported by any of the Jacksonville media that this team was finally able to win a game with Lawrence having a passer rating of under 90, just because it's so rare. Like they were 0-12 in previous scenarios in 2023 and 2024 combined whenever he was under, again, 90 quarterback passing rating. So the last time the Jaguars won a game with Lawrence putting up a passer rating of less than 90 was that 2022 Chargers comeback win.
Wow.
So like, does that not support that whole supporting cast failure argument that surrounded Lawrence through much of his career?
Yeah, but I say the difference is the running game being able to offset some of the load that Trevor normally carries. Liam Coen has been very consistent in terms of talking about the running game and how they want to be a physical team. They want to run the football. They want to do some of those things to lighten the load on the quarterback. regardless of what we think about Trevor as a franchise quarterback, it is impossible for the franchise quarterback to be counted on to be the man on 65 of the 65 offensive plays that you have. By being able to run the football, you can take some of that load off of him, and maybe you need him to be the high quality superstar player, maybe on 10 to 15 plays out of the game. And those are passes and those things. By being able to run the football effectively, which the Jaguars at 200 rushing yards, Travis Etienne 143 on 16 carries with a tub, that really allowed them to just kind of play, I would say, in management mode as opposed to being in playmaker mode. And for the quarterback, you want that. Everybody wants a franchise quarterback that can be the ultimate playmaker. But the best quarterbacks seamlessly transition between manager to playmaker based on the situation. We had a chance to see Trevor Lawrence do that, and we hope to see more of those situations, because what it means is the entire offense is working well, and it doesn't put so much pressure on number 16 to have to play at an exceptional high level for this team to win games.
No, and you said it. I mean, you said it better than I could. Like, those analysts who champion quarterback wins over everything might be a little bit nervous today. If Jacksonville is able to win half of those games with Lawrence just playing at an average to maybe even below average level in this quote unquote weaker division, I can't imagine the eventual ceiling for this team once they truly get it figured out and start firing all cylinders. So I'm kind of with you in that thought process, anyways. But in reference to the run game, like, just to kick that back, you just discussed Travis Etienne's 143 yards rushing. Like, per the numbers, this was the best rushing game from an individual Jacksonville Jaguars running back since Etienne's 2022 Week 8 matchup against the Broncos. I believe he had 156 yards. And that it was the best team performance on the ground, the 200 yards rushing you mentioned, since that Week 6, 2022 Colts game. Is this 2022 again for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Are we back?
I mean, I don't know if we're back. I think this week coming up against the Bengals will be another test that will kind of reveal who we could be and who we may be as the season goes along. I will say that from an offensive standpoint, there are a lot of pieces that you can lean on. But I think Liam Coen's approach, where you want to utilize the running game, is kind of like the foundation to set up everything, will allow those guys to maximize it. No disrespect to Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is a friend and a colleague and all those things, and I love what he was able to do to get this team up and going. But the one thing that we knew would never happen in Jacksonville was Doug wasn't going to rely on the running game to set it up. He would run, but he's going to run maybe as the pass game sets up the run. We'll take advantage of some light boxes and run it then. Liam wants to flip that on the head. He wants to establish the running game and make people have to defend the run, not only because it gives you an opportunity to develop and reveal your toughness, it allows you to control the game, but it also sets up the explosive plays. When you think about the National Football League and the explosive plays that typically happen in the passing game, the overwhelming majority of them are off play action. So the better you are running, the more significant the threat play action is, because now those guys have to run to the line of scrimmage to stop the running game. That creates the big voice. And in fact, if you go back and look at the interception that J.C. Horn made, which was terrific, Travis Hunter is coming open right behind him. And if that ball is up maybe 3 feet higher, Travis Hunter may have a 60-yard completion. And part of that is the design of the offense, where they're going to have some things where they play action and run these deep overs and post routes that they're going to take advantage of those guys at the intermediate level coming up to the run to throw it over the head. The running game is significant because of that. It sets up Trevor Lawrence to have more big plays down the field in the passing game.
I think I'm fully in agreement there also. I want to give you pushback. I'm just waiting for you to say something I disagree with. So overall, like, the play, the JC Horn one-handed interception was so great of a defensive play. Like, and if it wasn't happening from a Carolina Panthers defender, I probably would have been clapping at that if that was against any other team other than these Jacksonville Jaguars, unfortunately. But yeah, to your point, if it's probably another yard higher, another 3 feet higher, that may be a 60-yard reception and maybe an 80-something yard touchdown for Travis Hunter. So hopefully they'll get that cleaned up. And even though it was an impossible or nearly impossible play for the defender, you want to make sure you don't even allow him to make those nearly impossible plays if you can just get that just a little bit higher. So but also in reference to that run game, and I know folks are going to probably say, hey, man, it's a one-game sample size. And the Russian performance was only, quote unquote, only against the Carolina Panthers, who struggled against the run in 2024. Uh, what you were recently on the Frangie show on 1010XL. I wanted to
Mhm.
make sure I give them that shout out where you discussed the staff's commitment to the run game and kind of being comfortable to those 1, 2 yard, 3 yard gains and kind of just keep on powering and powering and powering until it kind of bursts through. And I guess my question for you is, for the staff, will they have that kind of patience against this stout Cincinnati defense that just held Cleveland to 2 yards a carry on 24 carries last week?
Oh, I think so. And I think the reason why they'll have that commitment is not even necessarily what they get on the ground. It's what benefits come from showing that commitment. Can you I kind of equate it to the cat and the yarn ball, right? So you have the kitten and you just keep dangling the yarn ball in front of the cat. And so you see him swipe at it. Well, the running game does that. Every time Trevor Lawrence reaches out and sticks the ball in the belly of a running back, what it does, it lures those defenders closer and closer to the line of scrimmage because they're so used to seeing the run. But when he sticks it out there and he pulls it back, and then he throws an intermediate route right at intermediate range behind the depth of the linebackers in front of the safeties, then those big explosive plays happen. Because remember, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, and De'Ami Brown are terrific with the ball in their hands. And so if you can get them loose on one of those crossing routes where they're running away from the defense, but you get it to them on the move after play action, that's when the magic happens. That's when the big plays happen. I expect Liam Coen to be very diligent and persistent with the running game because at the end of the day, yeah, we want to run it because of the physicality and the control element, but really you want to run it to set up the explosive shots down the field.
Okay. So that's going to make this game much more interesting. Because again, if they're able to kind of keep it close, pretty much similar to the start of that Carolina Panthers game, if they're able to keep it close and continue leaning on that run game over and over and over, then they'll have an opportunity to kind of keep that game in a similar fashion that the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals game was in Week 1, where I was shocked that it was that close of a game. But that Browns defense is pretty dominant, so
Mhm.
that's not
Mhm.
so crazy. But also, in trying to take that Week 1 performance and kind of just lift it up off the paper and place it onto Week 2, it's becoming real difficult for me because I thought that combination of Tershawn Wharton, 99 for Carolina. I
Mhm.
thought he played really well in the run game in Carolina before he left due to being checked for a concussion. And then like one series later, he ended up leaving for good due to this hamstring injury. Like he was on his way to having a really dominant game, as far as stopping the run.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm just
look,
kind of like,
yeah, I mean, like, look, we don't know what it'll continue to look like. It's funny that you talk about Cincinnati and their defense because most people would look at the Bengals defense and say, like, hey, that's the weakest link for them.
mhm.
So much of the conversation coming in, well, they're not good enough. They're wasting Joe Burrow's best years. When I look at their defense, they have Trey Hendrickson on the front line, who's a blue chip player. And then there's some good players, but there's no one that's established as great. The main thing with Cincinnati is you have to be able to contain their offense enough so you can go to work on their defense. And to me, Liam Coen strikes me as more of the methodical play caller. I'm systematically wearing you down. I'm methodically beating you up before I do it. He would be like the body puncher as opposed to the knockout artist. He wants to wear you down, make you take a bunch of blows to the ribs, and then you're going to drop your hands, and then he delivers the knockout blow. To me, that's how the Jaguars want to play. They want to control the game. They want to run it. They want to throw it. They're going to throw it short and intermediate, but it's a slow death when you face the Jaguars. It's not going to be the aerial circus that some teams operate in. This is going to be one where, look, I think we start doing most of our damage against teams in the third and fourth quarter after you set them up and lean on them and wear them down. You'll see the more explosive plays happen in the second half because you've set the table with the things that you've done in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, if they can do that, again, to your point, if they can hold on the defensive side to keep the score in a reasonable level where they can continue with that run game, when they can continue having their structure in their offense, playing the game basically the way that they want to play it, I think we're in agreement. You just don't want to get into that situation like the Carolina Panthers entered into last week, where they had to abandon their play,
Mhm.
and it just changed the entire way that game kind of was going for them in at least that first quarter, maybe even the first half. Uh, But yeah, that's a weirder one. But overall, you did mention Trey Hendrickson. They also have
Mhm.
B.J. Hill. They have Shamar Stewart, like who played really well for a
Mhm.
rookie this past week. And that in the pass rush, that's woo. Um, I don't know how many people in the media predicted this offseason that the Bengals defensive line versus the Jacksonville O line matchup could be a battle of strengths with no preseason sacks given up by the Jaguars, no sacks given up in week one either. Can they keep Lawrence clean against those? BJ, Hill, Trey Hendrickson, who both had sacks last week. That's a big question for me.
Yeah, that's $1 million question. And the question every week is going to be how well will the offensive line play? We can talk about the skill weapons that the Jaguars have, and they can go toe to toe with pretty much anybody in the league when it comes to the depth and talent that they have on the perimeter. But it comes down to, can they win in the trenches? And in a league that is a line of scrimmage league where you have to be able to impose your will at the front line, are the Jaguars good enough to be able to hold up? Now, the Bengals offer a stiff test because Trey Hendrickson is terrific off the edge. You talk about the top sackers over the last 5 years. He's third. He's right there with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. So he is not one that we can kind of sleep on. In fact, you may have to have a plan to make sure you take him and eliminate him out the game. Shamar Stewart is a guy that's a wonderful athlete, but his athleticism alone makes him a dangerous pass rusher, even though his skills aren't refined as a pass rusher. You talk about BJ Hill being able to work on the inside. They have talent. The thing that you have to have if you're Jaguars, you got to nullify that talent with toughness. And so sometimes that toughness is running right at them. Other times that toughness requires you to put your hands on them, short set them, not allow them to dictate the turns when it comes to those passing downs.
Okay. Well, that's going to be that's going to be a big one all year. To your point, like just how physical can you be, and can you out physical the other team? When the Jaguars went down to Miami for the joint practices, that was a big topic of conversation for that week because the
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins had been into multiple joint practices and they seemed to be the more physical bunch on that day. And then you get into the game and the Jaguars realized what they were dealing with. They after taking that first punch, essentially, they understood who they were dealing with and they came back ready to kind of fight, if that makes sense. So I would then argue the same thing in this situation. It's going to be a week by week performance of who can take that first punch, who can deliver that first punch, more importantly, and kind of can see who's going to be the more physical team because this is who they seem to want to be.
They absolutely want to be this. This is the team that they want to be. Like I said on a few occasions, it's really important early in the year that when you're looking at the team, do you see them play the brand that they talk about playing? Meaning, if you talk about we're going to be a rough and tough team, we're going to play with energy, we're going to be physical, be situationally smart, aggressive, all those things. Well, when we see them play for real, did we see those things play out? I would say, yeah, we saw a team that had an edge to it because they were very physical at the point of attack on both sides of the ball. They were committed to running the game, which was another sign of toughness. They ran the ball not only when they wanted to, but when they had to. And everyone in the stadium knew that they were running. They still were able to run the ball effectively. Um, then it comes down to who's going to be the team that blinks first when it comes to it. If you come in there intent on running the ball and they come in intent on stopping it, well, who's going to abandon the plan before the other opponent? And so a lot of it this week I'm looking for is just the discipline, the composure, and the commitment. Liam Coen, if we face some adversity, can we stick to the script or do we go crazy and deviate from what the plan is being coming into the thing? Cincinnati can make you do that because on offense, man, they're one of the most explosive units that you will find. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I mean, they got Noah Fant. They have Joe Burrow, who loves to empty out the formation and just kind of play pitch and catch to a talented cast of pass catchers around him. It's a different test for the Jaguars this week. Now you're talking about a high-flying aerial circus. How do you manage that on defense? But then how do you neutralize it also with your offense, particularly an offense that has a lot of talent and wants to run the football with your offense maybe being your best defense in this matchup?
I mean, that's so interesting, and it's also interesting because the exact conversation that you're having right now is the exact conversation that I'm hearing is happening in that Carolina Panthers locker room. Like it's the exact conversation when you're hearing the players' interviews, and they're just like, we ran the play that was called on that 4th and 1 when they ended up passing the ball, and they had multiple opportunities to kind of run the ball. They got off the game plan to that point, and you played the game. You know what this
Mhm.
means when someone says, "Hey, man, we ran the play that was called." That sounds very much like I don't agree with this call, but I'm gonna do it. But that's how you end up losing the trust of your guys when like they're all in on the game plan, they're all in on the offseason plan, and then they're the first ones to blink. That can be problematic, especially like you say, are we the team who we claim to be in this offseason? So you called that one.
Yeah, no. So it really comes down to it, and what players are always doing, and players are very much like kids, right? They're heeding their parents' advice, but they're always looking to see if their parents are consistent. So every time Liam Coen stands in front of the team and utters, "Hey, we're going to be this type of team," yada yada yada, the players are holding him accountable to the things that he says. So if he says, "Hey, we're going to be a rough and rugged team, we're going to be a physical team," and this and that, well, the first time a third and one or third or fourth and one comes up, the team is looking to see, well, what call did coach bring in? Did he call a cute play, or are we going right at them? Those are the things that, as you're trying to build that bond and the trust between players and coaches and those things, are you staying true to who you say that we're going to be? Because if our identity is going to be something, it has to be forged in those 60 minutes between the lines on game day.
Yeah, and even more than that, whether it's the coach, whether it's the GM, whether it's the EVP, for the most part, your trust is going to be based on what you said and what you did and how you acted based on what you said. So if you say all offseason, we're going to continue tinkering with this roster, we're going to continue, making moves to try to build this roster in our image, and then you don't make any moves for the first half of the year, folks might look at you a little bit. They might look at you sideways a little bit, like, I don't know about this. But they
Yeah,
said, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I did. I need number changers. They went and got Travis Hunter. I need to continue tinkering the roster. They continue doing that. I mean, since we last saw each other, they traded Tank Bigsby, third-year running back, to the Eagles for a 5th and a 6th-round draft pick. Like, well, I guess let's get your thoughts on that. Like, how do you feel about that trade?
look, I think that's a byproduct of the young guys really stepping up. There are a few things that are in play. One, James Gladstone and Liam Coen come from a place where they spend time in LA, where, look, man, unheralded, undrafted, guys get opportunities. If you're in their camp, regardless of how you got there, when you're in, you get what you prove to be worthy of, meaning it's a true meritocracy. In Jacksonville, they're trying to create that. So when you look at Hines-Allen going in, you look at Bashir Tootin going in, and then they kept Tank Bigsby and those things. What they were telling us without telling us is that this is a true competition. And we feel good about the rookies and the young guys. We feel just as strongly about them as we feel about some of the established guys and the holdovers. And the other thing that showed up, hey, man, I like Tank. Tank was solid. But they're saying, hey, man, there are no free lunches. Everybody has to be able to come in here and do something. And you saw it early. When Hines-Allen was in the game early in the first quarter, you talk about a guy that is coming in like off the radar, and he is in the conversation to be not only active, but in the lineup on offense, not special teams, in the backfield, like one of the first or second, third down situations we had. That right there tells you the confidence that they had. And so they were willing to let this play out. And when you look at the stats, and as they do, they looked at the stat sheet and they said, you had these many carries, but you only had small number of yards. These other guys against the same defense had fewer carries and more production. Maybe, just maybe, from an efficiency standpoint, we need to give the ball to these guys, and maybe we can move on and be okay without you.
Yeah, and I'm sure the compensation didn't hurt, getting a 5th and a 6th-round draft pick for a guy who was, for the most part with Jacksonville in the first week, primarily played on special teams. Got a few snaps later in the fourth quarter. I think he didn't have an official run because his early run in the game ended up getting called back for a penalty. So overall, it's not bad management. It's just you knew this walking in. They had the 4 good backs, and after the trade, they end up signing running back Cody Schrader from the Rams practice squad, who ended the preseason top 5 in total running back PFF grades, total rushing yards, yards after contact, and missed tackles with 6 in the preseason. He also does kick return and was the Rams' second highest graded player on special teams in the preseason. So that was also a solid additional signing, so he's going to be on the roster at least for the next few weeks. But did you have any thoughts on the former Missouri star running back?
Look, man, I think what this is about the Jaguars giving guys opportunities. And one of the things that you're continuing to do, you're consistently doing throughout the preseason during training camp, is you're always looking at the bottom third of other people's rosters, whether it's who makes their team, who's going to be on their practice squad. You're always evaluating, trying to figure out, can you find a young guy to upgrade the situation. And whether that's come in on practice squad and eventually be a special teamer or maybe carve out a different role, it's about continuing to churn the bottom third of the roster to put the best 53 that you can put out there. And because James Gladstone and Tony Baselli and Liam Coen have been very, very adamant about, hey, man, we're going to give guys opportunities to play. And our coaches cannot be afraid of playing young guys. And what they've done is they've pruned the trees and they've allowed some of these guys to be in positions where, hey, maybe they blossom and sprout up and carve out bigger roles for themselves than many expected.
Yeah, man, they continue doing it. It's crazy to me, but also refreshing to me at the same time to say that when they claim to be bold, but then actually feel like they're really truly doing bold things. Like I came up at a time when I played for a really bad UCF team my first year. Like we lost every game. We were not good. I promise you. Like it was not a great situation. And then we went to George O'Leary, the former NFL coach
Yeah.
who ends up coaching in college. And it was just way different. All of a sudden, we're in conference championship games, and everything's great. But at the same time, I always was like, I wish we had a coach that ran this thing more like Boise State. And because at the time, Boise State was the edge of everything. They were the front of everything. They were bold. They were great, just doing wild things for an NFL team. And that's what I feel like it is under this Sean McVay, Liam Gladstone, Kevin O'Connell situation. Is just guys who are willing to say, I'm going to be bold and I'm actually going to keep this thing modernized hella hot water. So to that point, I'm just like, oh man, this is great that they said that they were going to do it, but it's even greater because they actually are doing it. And that builds trust in the fan base and the team.
Yeah, it does. And the first thing that everyone does, players, coaches, is when the head coach talks about one thing, they want to make sure that he follows through on his promises. So whatever you say you're going to do, you have to do. Otherwise, you lose credibility in the room, and it's hard to bring that back. Once people don't trust you, it's over when it comes to player-coach relationships. So Liam has done a really good job of being very, very clear with his vision, but also staying true to that vision with his decisions. It doesn't mean that every decision that you make is going to be popular in the locker room or those things, but if you stack together enough positive decisions and have enough success doing it the way that you say that you're going to do it, the buy-in comes. And when you get complete buy-in, that's when you have an opportunity to compete at the highest level.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just hope they continue to they continue allowing that to foster. They continue building on that trust and building on those that philosophy of just being open and honest and transparent in everything that they're doing. But before we get too far into this, I did want to just circle back onto some of our top questions heading into the Carolina game. We kind of discussed a few of these, so I won't hammer too much of it, but we thought this was going to be a Devon Hamilton week, just because we thought the Carolina Panthers were going to try to establish the run because that seemed to be the core of their offense, the base of their structure. I think the Jaguars, just in getting those turnovers, kind of got them off of that game plan in the way that they wanted to kind of run things especially after the hour and 16-minute break. But a bigger one for me was, I had a thought process that I needed the offense to play clean, and they did have the early drop on the screen pass to Brian Thomas Jr. They had the 11 penalties, 13 technical penalties if you want to count the kickoffs short of the goal and out of bounds. That wasn't the game you probably want. I know Liam talked about it in his post-game availability. I don't know that they'll be able to have that kind of success, especially winning by double digits against the Cincinnati Bengals if they're not able to get that cleaned up. And I'm talking like at least half of those penalties got to go away, right?
Yeah, no, those penalties. Like, here's the thing: in every game, you want to make sure that before we can worry about beating the other team, we want to make sure we don't beat ourselves. So this is a Jaguars versus Jaguar situation. So what can we do to eliminate the things that ultimately hurt us? And so let's make sure we eliminate the big plays and the turnovers, right? So if you don't turn the ball over, you eliminate the explosives from the opponent. That gives you a chance. Then let's make sure we don't have any pre-snap or foolish penalties. Make sure we get lined up right. We have the right number of men in the huddle. We get to the line of scrimmage. We don't false start. We don't do those silly things that we control. Nothing about the opponent. And then the final part of that is just making sure, hey, can we finish the game the right way, but not having egregious errors in the kicking game? So cover all kicks. Make sure we don't give up big returns. Make sure we protect on punt so we don't get a punt blocked. All of those things. Literally, It is really hard to lose a game in the National Football League if you do those four things. Don't turn the ball over, limit the big plays from the opponent, make sure we eliminate and neutralize or minimize the number of pre-snap and foolish penalties that we have. And then it's about no kicking game errors. If you just are solid in those four areas, you can win 80 to 90% of your games.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, and I do know that that's been a conversation all throughout the offseason. That was a conversation early on in Tampa Bay, just because it was more difficult offense to learn. So a lot of those penalties ended up being on the offense. In this case, to your point about the pre-snap penalties, they had the one false start. I believe that was Walker Little. I don't know that they had any other pre-snap penalties on the offense. I think they had like 4 or 5 holding penalties and things of that nature. And obviously, you mentioned the kicking, 2 penalties and a holding penalty on defense. Jordan Lewis, pass interference, 26-yarder by Jarian Jones. And for the most part, that's what we were looking at in the penalties. So if you just kind of get rid of those holding penalties, which can be called on most plays of an NFL game, I think we're in shooting range of saying, all right, this is a moderately clean game, if not for the false start. Like, and it sounds a little bit better when you kind of frame it that way, but 11 just feels like a lot.
I mean, it does feel like you want to curve that down, but a lot of times, it's funny because you talk about being a disciplined team. You don't want to have a bunch of penalties, but it depends on how those penalties are really how you derive or get to those penalties. Are these aggressive penalties where you're going for it? You're trying to run through the ball, and they call it pass interference, but you're really close to doing it. As long as they're not silly or foolish penalties, one where they're the ego penalties where someone pushes you and starts taunting, so you taunt back, that's a foolish penalty. One where look, man, we jump off or we have too many people in the huddle, like little things that have nothing to do with your playing ability or playing with sound technique. If you can get rid of those things and make it where, hey, the referee has to call the game, you have to beat us between the lines. We're not going to help you, give you anything that puts you ahead of us. It's going to be a hard day for you because most teams can't. They're not disciplined enough. They're not patient enough. They're not detailed enough to be able to win against those type teams.
Okay. Oh, and just to wrap up the other things, I think they did a really, really good job, the Jacksonville Jaguars O-line, in limiting Derrick Brown. I didn't hear his name much in the game, honestly. I think he had like 3 or 4 tackles, but overall, it was a very quiet day for him. More importantly, we've been talking about the return of Travis Etienne, which is make Etienne great again. We've been talking about this for since the 2024, heading into the 2024 season. Just the fact that they needed to do something different in the run game and kind of just get him started. So obviously with the new regime, they did that in spades with his best game since 2022. And the missed tackles weren't so prevalent that it was a huge problem. Obviously, you had the Eric Murray missed sideline tackle that resulted in the only touchdown given up against Carolina. And they had a few, missed tackles on the rushes early in the game, but they had awesome pursuit behind it. So I think it kind of resolved itself in some ways, but did you see anything that you're thinking like, oh, they really got to get that right as far as the defense was concerned on that end?
Yeah, like a couple of things. I love the acronym that you have for Make Etienne Great Again. I like that. Never thought about it as a mega thing. I may have to use that going forward. That's pretty cool. I think the main thing with Travis Etienne, getting him loose and making him a big part of it is critical to what they do on offense. Defensively, it's the simple things. So much of last year, we couldn't even tell how good the team was because we couldn't get a line correctly. We're giving up plays because we don't know how to line up. We don't know how to communicate who is who and what is what. Going back to your days in high school or even in college with George O'Leary, we have all heard this phrase in some way, shape, or form: alignment, assignment, adjustment. Where do I line up? What is my assignment? If we have an audible or a check or whatever, what is the adjustment based on what we're seeing? If we can get that together, the triple A's, that gives us a chance. For the Jaguars, their defense is really as simple as that. Can we get lined up? Can we keep the ball in front of the defense? Can we run to the ball, all 11, and tackle? That's how defense has to be. And because they've gone to a system that I would say is simpler in terms of it's a vision and break system, so all eyes are on the ball. What that does is your tips and your overthrows, they lead to interceptions. And we saw that happen with Jordan Lewis. We saw and Andrew Wingert pop in and take one because of great eyes. We saw Foye Oluokun snag one. That is the premise of the defense, being vision and break. The other part of vision and break defense, it helps you in the run game because all eyes are in the backfield. So when the running back pops out, You got more guys seeing it. Oh, I need to come and rally and make a tackle. Whereas before, if you're in man coverage, your back is to them, and those things, when that running back pops out, it's ended up being a big day. So going to a simpler scheme, one is more zone-based, helps them. The teaching, when I talk to the players, they talk about how clear the teaching has been from the coaching staff, very detailed, very black or white, not a lot of gray. Well, when you create systems that are very black or white, it allows your guys to play fast. And at the end of the day, great defense comes down to two things: tackling and pursuit. If you can tackle well, if you can run to the ball and you're running to the ball, maintaining proper leverage, that gives you a chance to play great defense. And the Jaguars have a chance because they've simplified so many things that it literally comes down to that. See ball, get ball. If you go do those things, you can have a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean, that Foye Aluakon interception does not happen if he doesn't have 2025 effort. That was an issue that fan base would often harp on. They would post videos on all the socials saying, hey, this guy's not running. Hey, that guy's not running. And some of those players are no longer here because, again, if you're looking at that film, if Foye's not running full speed when that ball's in the air, there's no way he's right there. Instead of just an incomplete pass and it's an attaboy, it's a great play, and now all of a sudden it is a turnover that has to be reviewed, but it's a turnover that happens for the Jaguars because of that hustle that he's putting on tape. So I think it's a great situation, and you're not wrong there.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
also,
go ahead. It is as simple as that. And one thing that I can say, like in watching them practice a ton, everything that they talk about doing in the pressers, you see drills and actions to match up those words. And that's why I'm fully confident that what they're talking about doing and the team that they're talking about being, be it this year or down the line, eventually it's going to happen because the things that they're doing and the planning process, the preparation process matches the goal in mind. If we do those things, if we want to be a great tackling team, we got to tackle all that stuff. So everything is lined up. We're talking about having alignment. The alignment is there from top to bottom, from players to coaches. It's all right there.
No, and you hit it on the head. We're discussing the drills, and there's no guarantee that it's going to result in great outcomes. Like, you can't control that part. The ball will bounce where the ball bounces. The plays will happen. Like, sometimes you just go against the buzzsaw. Someone's just playing really good that day, and there's not much you can do. But overall, I've been hammering this entire offseason that I've gone to I don't even know, 20 practices this offseason, and I've seen these guys on the defensive staff practice turnover drills at least on 2 periods, if not 3 periods, in every practice. And then you just love to see how it then materializes, whether it's in the scrimmage for the Jaguars, whether it's in the preseason for the Jaguars, and now into the regular season where they get a third of their turnovers from 2024 in one game, because it's going from the teaching room to the practice fields to the field, and you can actively say whatever happens this season, it's not because of lack of teaching, and it's not because of lack of clarity in what they're saying. They're actually hearing them. It's going to come down to whether or not they're performing on the field and whether or not these guys are able to, I guess, just be the better team on certain occasions. But I don't think it's going to be because of coaching, and that's my main takeaway from all of that.
Yeah, really good staff. It's a mix of young guys with a lot of energy and old guys who've been around the block and understand what the game is going to be like. When I think about some of the older coaches that are on that staff, Edgar Bennett, who is like a native product, a guy who I credit would teach me how to be a pro when we played together in Green Bay. He is terrific. Ron Miles, working with the DBs, a guy who's been around the block a few times in this league to nurture them. I don't believe it's a coincidence that you have a mix of young and old designed to make sure that you captivate the players' minds and imaginations by giving them very detailed instructions that allows them to grow and get better. And the more they get better, the more they trust the coaches. The more they trust the coaches, the more that you can do when it comes to explaining the playbook and the game plan.
Yeah. And I've truly enjoyed all the accolades and the fanfare from the media and the fans as far as how great the defensive performance was on Sunday. And I want to make sure we always give them their flowers. Like, I've often talked about how much they worked on turnovers, and I'm happy to see I'm happy it's paying dividends in week 1, but also in reviewing week 1 and projecting into week 2. I don't think it's any sort of a hot take to say that Bryce Young struggled in seeing the field on Sunday. Like, I don't think that's crazy to say, especially after they were kind of forced to abandon the run game due to score. I mean, Joe Burrow is obviously a different monster, no?
Yeah, look, Joe Burrow is a different monster. He absolutely is a different monster. He is someone who Look, man, he's one of the top four. Right now, if we talk about the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks in the league actively, Joe Burrow's there with Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. The thing that you have to deal with Joe Burrow is the ultimate point guard at the position. He is going to
Yeah.
distribute the ball out to those playmakers, and he is going to dare you to be able to tackle those guys in space. And so, while it may be the occasional deep shot and those things, a lot of it is, can you stop their quick rhythm passing game to T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and anybody else that they put on the perimeter? He is going to look at the coverage. He's going to empty the formation out, and he is going to find the favorable matchup, and he is going to pick on your weak link. This is a different test because from an offensive standpoint, the Bengals passing game poses a few different challenges when it comes to the matchups because we're a zone team and because they can do some different things where they call formations with Y outside of Z. So they put the tight end outside, the number one receiver on the inside. How do we handle the slot passing game? All of those things. So they would do some creative things. It comes down to tackling. It comes down to making sure we're aligned correctly so you don't give up the big balls. And then it comes down to your discipline. The more disciplined that the Jags are in their zone, the more likely that Joe Burrow can get tired of throwing checkdowns. And when they get tired of throwing checkdowns, they force it into tight windows and off tips and overthrows to fit those balls into tight windows. That's where the interception comes. When you're looking at this game, it's a matter of how long can the Jags play tight defense to eventually force the checkmate to force Joe Burrow into something that he doesn't want to do, which is get greedy, and then that leads to a turnover.
Well, and I initially, because I'm still trying to gauge and learn what exactly Anthony Campanelli does as far as his scheme, as far as his defense, as far as his philosophy and all of that. I'm still trying to figure out what the book is going to be. And I know it's obviously a week by week league where it can be one thing one week and an entirely different thing the next week. Now, Bryce struggled against the blitz. But also Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the league versus extra rushers. To your point, he's one of those top four guys. Now in that Browns game, the Browns dominated on defense by playing more coverage and just consistently getting home with four. They did blitz every so often, but Joe tried to scramble and normally could extend plays a little bit and make passes off of it. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, will the Jaguars change what they do? Well, I can't say even what they do, what they did in week one. Or will you expect like basically a totally different type of game plan for like this week as far as how they're going to play against this roster, this stacked receiver room specifically?
Look, I think when it comes down to the Jaguars, I don't think you change what you do. I think at the end of the day, you're best doing what you do because that's what you practice on. That's what your players know. That's what they're comfortable in. You want your guys to be comfortable playing. You want them to be able to play fast. You want them to be aggressive because they know what they're doing and they don't have the mess ups. To me, I don't think you change anything. You're aware of where those guys are. You can track their whereabouts. Hey, where's number one? Where's number five? Let's make sure we understand where they are. But at the end of the day, you just have to play your assignment. If you play your assignment and play fast and physical, that'll give you a chance. And I think for the Jaguars, they don't need to deviate. They don't need to get outside of themselves. This is not the 85 Bears. This is not the greatest show on turf. This is a good team, a really good offensive team, very explosive. But you don't have to be superheroes to win this game. You just have to be solid. They have to play a good game to win, but they don't have to be exceptional to be able to knock this Bengals team off.
Now, so I enjoyed the matchup between whether it was Travis Hunter and Tetaroa McMillan or T Mac, sorry, and Jarian Jones, or just across the board. I thought that they individually, Tet McMillan played well when his opportunities did come. He had the one incompletion with Tyson Campbell that was in the end zone where Tyson does a great job getting his hand on it, on the only hand that was on the ball, forcing that incompletion. But overall, he got the 26-yard pass interference, and he was also open on the deep ball where Jordan Lewis ended up blitzing and getting Bryce Young's hand. If you have a better quarterback in that situation, who's able to identify that blitz a little bit earlier, that could have been a touchdown given up to the Panthers at that point. So that's why I'm just like, if they're going to blitz, this is going to be a really interesting game, and I hope it works, obviously, for all those reasons. But that's why I kind of call it a different monster. But to your point, this is not a game where they can't win. Like
Mhm.
just in week one, I mean the Bengals had four ways of losing that game or nearly losing that game against the Browns. Like just last week, they were down with 2 minutes left in the third. The Browns kicker misses an extra point. They missed the chip shot field goal with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Cleveland gave away two interceptions with just tip balls. So I have no idea who Cincinnati is right now. While they're kind of trying to settle in early in the season, man.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that's the nature of the league. Like, no one really knows until we get to about 4 weeks into the season. You can't really fully know if your team can lean into the identity that you want to create. Right now, what you're trying to do if you're Jacksonville, you're trying to learn from the lessons that you glean from the first game. You're trying to clean up some of the things that need to be cleaned up. You want to build on some of the things that you were able to establish, and then you want to see what it looks like against a different team, a different test, a different challenge. There's going to be some adversity in this game. How do we respond to that? How do we handle going on the road? All of those things are there. How does Liam Coen, now that you put some stuff on tape, how do you adjust to the adjustments that are being made to handle your offense? All of those things are there. But to me, it continues to be a Jaguars versus Jaguars game. Hey, let's line up. Let's do what we do. Let's see what it looks like against another team, and then go from there. As long as we don't make this up to be more than what it is, I think the Jags are fine. I think they didn't play great and still got to win. Man, if we play better, I would expect us to win again.
Man, I think I agree. They won by double digits, and Trevor Lawrence had one rough quarter in a reasonably fine game outside of that. I can imagine again what it's going to look like if he has a game where he just wakes up with his Wheaties and he's he's just on the right side of the bed. That's going to be a great one. Have you landed on a final prediction for Sunday just yet?
Oh no, I think this is a Jags game. I think this is a game where we talk about um, there are always milestone moments over the course of the season where you start to get a sense of what this team is. And to me,
Mhm.
this is a measurement game where you have an opportunity to see how you stack up against the elite when it comes to elite quarterbacks. To me, this is more of a defensive game where we're trying to examine what does the defense look like against an A1 quarterback. If the defense looks good, if they look like they looked last week against an A1 quarterback, now you begin to believe that this team can do some special things down the road. I look for the Jaguars to take this game and make it very, very tight. It's going to be very competitive in the fourth quarter. But then I'm just a believer that somehow, somebody's going to make a play in the fourth quarter to tilt the game in the Jags' direction, and they get a tough win on the road.
Whew, man, it's going to be a party in downtown. I can tell you that if that happens. So, from your mouth to God's ears, I will also say I'm sorry about your Tar Heels. I'm so sorry. That that I
But
wasn't. Yeah,
like we have a great game coming up. We play Richmond this week, and then we play some team with three letters after that down in Orlando.
team with
That
three letters.
Yeah, three letters down there. And so we're gonna look and see, because I've heard that team with the three letters, they can't really make up their mind on what their mascot is. Are they the golden, black, whatever? I just
Really?
know there's something nice. So I don't know, but we're gonna go down to a stadium.
Dang,
We can go
we
down
were an
to
old school team, and now we've upgraded. That's how we evolved. You know how
yeah.
this goes.
So we're gonna go down to, I guess, this World Camping Stadium and just kind of see who runs out, and we'll take care of business. But before we can worry about those three letters, we're gonna take care of Richmond and get it going this week. Make sure we go 2-1, and then look to go 3-1 when we head Orlando a couple
I
weeks.
hear you. I hear you. It sounds good. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. We'll see what happens. But
I
in
mean,
a few weeks,
I
I'm looking
did see that.
forward to it.
I am too. I did see that team with the three letters scuffle and scrape by their first week. It was a very tough, competitive game. Week one. I know Scott Frost is back, and he's supposed to bring the magic, but I don't know. I
I was
don't
at
know.
that game soaking wet for 2 hours and 15 minutes while they had the weather delay, and ran into Gabe Davis and Charles Johnson there, UFC guy, and it was a great experience, but it wasn't a great experience on the field. I give you that. But they left with the win, and at the end of the day, that's all you want. You can correct the stuff on the side, and that's fine as long as you get that W. But final question before we let you go. I got it. This is one I reserve for certain guests. I got to know because I played with too many guys. I played with Brandon Marshall, Kevin Smith,
Mm. Mhm.
Matt Prater, a lot of these guys, and I know there are levels to this. So I got to ask you, when did you learn you were famous?
Oh, I don't like that's funny. I don't know if I ever learned that I was famous. I think I felt like I was famous in my mind from the age of 7, but I don't know if I ever lived up to how famous I thought I was, but in my mind, when we're out there in the backyard playing 3 flies up and all that, I mean, I always felt like I was going to be good. I don't know if the talent ever matched the confidence, but very early when I started loving ball, I always felt like I was going to have a chance to be okay in it.
That's it. That's everything, though. I've slowly realized there's this level of fame thing that no one thinks they're famous. I want to be very clear about this. You have obviously made moves in the NFL landscape across the professional scouting to the media to playing, etc. And whether or not you achieve the goals set by your 7-year-old self, you absolutely are moving the needle. And I guarantee if you went online right now and ask Gronk or whatever AI service, they'll probably tell you, "Hey man, you're pretty famous. You should know that." Just so. Thank you for joining the Duval Dive. Please let the people know where they can find your work.
Hey man, look, they can check out everything that we have going on Believe. They can check me out on X at Bucky Brooks. Instagram is at Big Play Football. Whatever it is, you can Google it. We're talking about it. It's all thing balls all the time for me.
And I appreciate you taking your time out of your early California morning to talk about Jaguars, to talk about their upcoming opponent and a preview last week's game. And you can find all of my work covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. Obviously, on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, please rate and review us wherever you catch your podcast, and like and subscribe on the Duval Dive on YouTube. But until next time, you already know what it is. Go Jags.